and then you can pick that up a little bit later on. I will email you a little bit later after the session anyway with a link to that web page. So look out for that, and that will be coming to you a little bit later on. Well, we have come to 12 o'clock. So it's time to introduce our two guests today. We're joined by Kata and Toby. Kata has worked in the L&D industry for these past 6 or 7 years and has managed more than 50 projects to implement learning solutions for global organizations. We're also joined by Toby there, you can see on the screen. And Toby has worked in L&D for over 10 years. And during his time, he's touched on many roles within the L&D space, from instructional design to product marketing, and is currently the CMO at Filtered. Toby, Kata, welcome. Lovely to have you join us today. I will turn my microphone off. I will hand over the virtual microphone to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Michael. That introduction was very kind and very pleasant. Hello, everyone. If I can just take over and share my screen very quickly, you should be able to see my presentation. And Michael, can I just confirm with you that you can see the slideshow right now?
Yes, we can. That is perfect. Thank you.
Fantastic. So hello, everyone. And thank you for attending today's webinar. I am extremely excited to be able to share some curation knowledge with you. Of a quick introduction, my name is Kata, and I specialize in digital project management. I am the senior implementations manager at Filtered, and I implement content intelligence and learning experience platforms at Filtered. On my daily work, I help the L&D professionals curate more effectively and improve the user's experience, learning experience. And I have a lovely team on my side that helps me with curation, understanding client needs, and bringing them the success. And I am here with Toby. Toby is just next to me, so I will just pass on to him.
Hi everyone, it's lovely to be here. I'm so pleased that so many people have joined us today. It's really fantastic. Please keep them coming, by the way, your intros, who you are, where you're kind of dialing in from. That would be great, so we can get a feel for the spread of the audience. Yeah, I've done lots of different jobs at Filtered, from kind of sales and solutions to feeding into product, but I'm very pleased, especially today on this webinar, to be currently the CMO at Filtered. And as it said, you know, my job is really to brag about all the stuff that Kata does. And it is, you know, why should you listen to Kata talk about curation? It's because what her team is doing is light years ahead of where the industry is right now. So using a combination of technique, process, and technology, but she's curating a lot of playlists, a lot of learning pathways, which are passing validation and leading to great engagement and success of LXP and learning projects. And she's doing it to a high degree of quality, but fast, right? So, you know, typically Kata's team can turn around a quality playlist in an hour, and that's compared to an industry average of 2 to 3 weeks, maybe about $5,000 it might cost to do that via a process of going out to your vendors, asking them what they think is best and putting it all together. So really privileged to be providing some commentary as Kata shares her amazing process for how we achieve these results.
Fantastic. Thanks, Toby. I just wanted to follow up quickly to say that I like to call my team superheroes, and their superpower is the speed. But moving on, what I am really pleased to do today is to invite you to the masterclass in curating the learning pathways and playlists. And what I would like to focus on today is why do we curate and how to do that well. And actually, I can now see a typo on the screen. So it's not wow, but it's how. But it's also a wow when you do it well. And I actually wanted to open up the microphones, or actually the typing microphones to all of you to tell me why all of you curate. What's the main reason behind it? It will be great to understand what problems, issues, needs brought you to today's webinar.
And just feel free to drop that into the chat panel. And just make sure, as I said earlier on, that you make sure that it's dropped to everyone, and then everyone can see that. And I can see straight away, we've got ensures that everything is delivered. We just whip that back. See, things are coming in so fast. Let's just go back. Ensure that info is delivered effectively to encourage learning, as there is so much choice. People need to have less choice potentially. Cutting through the noise, creating good quality content that truly meets the needs of my team, making it relevant, helping learners make sense of what's available. Julie's saying providing guidance to attain an objective. So a whole plethora there. Are they the things that you were expecting to see, Kata, that were coming in there?
Yes, absolutely. Those been stories that I have been hearing for the last 6 years as I work with all the L&D professionals, curators, people that want to help others learn better or find content that's out there. It's just so much noise, like one of you just said. So actually, to sum this all up, based on yours, and the client experience that I have been working with, the curation can take on many faces, but the main reasoning behind the curation that I hear on a daily basis are the skills gaps that we want to help people to close. We want them to find and engage with the right content. And thanks to that, they will develop the skills needed, but also that will help us, the organizations, achieve much needed business outcomes. The main question that we should actually ask away right here is how can we make sure that our curation efforts bring the results we need? And I think the very straightforward answer to it would be curating a learning pathway. And a learning pathway is a designated sequence of assets that will tell your user, learn this, and you will be able to do that. But that's not it. What comes along is we need a good learning pathway to engage our users, but also to help them learn as much and as well as possible. So a good learning pathway stitches together exceptional learning assets. It's a rich, diverse, cohesive, and enlightening learning journey for our end users. And it can also have a transformative impact on both professional and personal lives. And that's mainly because we care about our audience and because we care about our end users. Oops, sorry. And what I would like to do with you today is present you with the process that I have established for the last 6 years when I was working with my clients, with my team, with some people from my private cycle as well. And the process that I have established has 6 steps. The 6 steps focus on researching what my objective is. Why do I need to curate this content? Then I focus on gathering the content, analyzing what I actually have available. It might be a lot, so the next step is cooling that content down, basically reducing the amount of assets I want to take under consideration when constructing pathways. What I need to do next is structuring in a cohesive way so that my audience wants to learn from it, but also knows how to follow it. And the next step is revision, which is really important. Always make sure that you revise to make sure that everything goes well together. And last step, probably the most exciting, is publishing your learning pathway that helps your audience start the beautiful journey of learning. So let me take you through the steps one by one. So it will actually make you aware that it's not that difficult to have that perfect pathway on the go. The first step.
It sounded quite difficult, Kata, from a definition before. I thought it was a wonderful definition, but and really optimistic and positive. You know, rich, diverse experiences, transformative impact. I think it's quite a long way from where many learning pathways are now. But your process is going to show us that it's not as tricky to achieve something that can be that effective as it might seem, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I can promise you that. So the first step that I always do is the research. I either do this through talking to the clients or analyzing internal projects. Sorry, there we go. So there are two things that we have to consider when designing a learning pathway. First of them would be our business objective. So the aim, why do we want to create a learning pathway? Why do we need to provide our staff with some learning content? As an example, I could give you an organization that is going through a digital transformation where people need to acquire new skills very quickly. And one of those skills would potentially be cybersecurity, when people need to deal with data, operations, and that's all very sensitive. Awareness around cybersecurity would be very crucial to them, hence the reason for creating a learning pathway on that. The second thing that we need to consider is the objective that our audience has, because that's actually all about them. We need to understand what their needs are, what pains they have, and then prioritize that in a way that we can deliver content without overloading them. And for example, imagine you have a colleague who complains or actually mentions that he's got a problem with presentation skills. Try to understand what's the core issue behind him saying that. Don't overestimate, oh, it must be definitely about the design of the presentation or about the storytelling. Try to ask away some questions around how do they feel before and after the presentation, what expectations they have around that presentation. And based on that, you can actually come to a conclusion that what they need to learn more about is to how to be self-confident or how to fix their mindset to be open-minded to speaking to people. I know that Toby wanted to say something in here, but I will check in with you.
In other words, we should be fairly used to trying to get to the nub of the business problem when we're creating content. You know, when we're about to blow 30 grand on building some content, we really try and make sure that we're solving the right problem. And even though curation is more of a lightweight process and a lot faster than creation, it's still just as important to understand your audience and what you're trying to do, because what you are trying to achieve with your playlist or pathway, whatever you call it, will change the nature of that pathway. So let's say you're trying to promote the cause of energy transition in a large energy company, and you're trying to get awareness by a lot of people who have very little familiarity with this theme and background, and you're going to send out email newsletters. Well, the content and the criteria for including content could be very different to, say, a 12-month-long learning path for someone to take their first steps as a data scientist. The content you'd include would be really different. So it's so important to have those conversations and understand the context.
Thank you, Toby. So once you have done your research, like Toby had mentioned, analyzed what your business cases and needs are, but also what it is that your audience really need to learn more about, it's time for step 2 and gather your content. There are a few ways of gathering the content, and you would probably find the best way for you once you practice doing it. You can use your existing libraries. Those would be internal content that has been generated by your other teams. That can be existing libraries from external providers like LinkedIn Learning. Alternatively, you can automate your curation and use various tools or systems to help you with that. That would be Undersping, Pocket, Google Alerts, and even email subscriptions can be a great source of learning content that you can then reshare with others. And then the last, and probably my favorite, but also a little bit time consuming, is curating manually. And you can do that using Google Advanced Search or asking away. Ask your experts, ask people from your network, the champions, or people from your team. They do search on Google quite often, so they definitely have come across content that help them at something. And actually, I would like to pose another question at this stage and ask, what method of curation do you find most useful or effective? And again, I will ask you to pop your answer onto the chat and ask Michael to read out if possible.
And another way to frame this might be like, how are you curating now? You know, what methods are you actually using at all? And maybe, Kata, actually, now we've established the question, maybe in a moment, jump back to the previous slides. Yeah. Definitely.
And I can see that straight away, Paul has put their RSS and Google Alerts. We use blended all three. Anita is saying asking experts is an effective way to find, let's just, whoa, whipping past again. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up. Asking experts to find, it can be time consuming. How can we speed up the process? SMEs all around the business, a mix of resources from my own designs and experts. Faye's saying manually. And Cariona is saying manual search and external portfolios mostly. Stefan, I asked for trusted guides and experts and curate them. So a whole raft of responses coming in there. Yeah, right the way from Google Alerts, SMEs and around the business, right the way through to various different experts, suppliers, SMEs in the business, manually, internal courses, etc. So yeah, a whole plethora coming in there.
Yeah, definitely. And I can totally feel in your shoes when you try to find all that content in that massive ocean of available assets that there are online and offline, actually. And I can also align with you on the fact that you think, oh my God, that's a lot of content. What do I do with it? It's a massive pool of content that I need to do something about. And the next step I would normally do is to cool this content down. And to do that, I have implemented a step in my process that will help me streamline and funnel to the content that I actually need to curate my pathway. And to do that, I have identified two sets of criteria that I apply to the content that I have gathered onto my library. The first set of criteria is actually, I start with principles that will help me include or exclude content from my curation set. So first, I establish a set of data criteria to apply to the content that I'm looking for. And always remember that this should be based on your learner's needs. And then that criteria can be applied to the metadata of the content, which makes this process much faster than looking at the individual assets. So what I actually keep in mind is those are the formats of the assets that I want to use. A variety of videos, articles, podcasts, online courses, and that will give people the choice and diversity that they need. I search for content that has been published as recent as possible to avoid any outdated information, which might be quite recent. It's quite often that we find content that's not relevant any longer. I make sure that I check the providers. So I need to know them. I would like my audience to recognize the providers, but I also would like them to be trustful. I also take under account how much time my audience have to learn. So based on that, I can either pick micro-learning or choose online courses for them to develop further. And lastly, but also important, I think about any type of limitations that my audience might have. So those would be paid for subscriptions or devices that my audience would be using. And I have picked two example assets to show you how I apply those criteria when I look at my content. So I have given the green light to a YouTube video published by Simon Sinek, simply because it's easy to access, it's short, it's just recent, and Simon Sinek is a well-known author to a majority of us. But I have given a red flag to this Financial Times article simply because my audience don't have the access to that paid for subscription and they won't be able to access it. once you've, and just one thing, it might be the case that this Financial Times article will be perfect for your audience because they will have that subscription paid for, and that article topic is perfect for your pathway.
And just to add, Kata, to this slide, these filtering decisions based on the technical criteria, they can be done sometimes at a provider level. So you might look at this and think, right, well, that means everything from Financial Times is out for my audience. And it might also, if your curation sources are things like email newsletters, where you can be pretty confident that something's been put into an email newsletter is going to have clear flagging about whether something can be accessed or not. So that's how these criteria become really powerful when you start to use them to kind of filter in or out whole sources of content.
It's like batching the content at this stage when you can opt out or opt in to a special, this one given provider or source of content or types, formats of content. For example, if your audience can only spend a little bit of time on learning, then I would exclude all the long-winded online courses. Once you've applied all of those technical criteria, your content pool is much smaller. And that leads us to the second set of criteria that are the quality criteria. Those quality criteria are usually applied to the substance of an asset. So that's going more into the nitty-gritty of every piece of content that I have, but not necessarily. We can also try to batch them up to some extent. And the things that I like to ask myself when I apply the quality criteria is this asset about the topic? Does it cover the topic from my pathway? Is it applicable to my business case? Is it visually appealing, enjoyable, brief and clear to my audience? But also if it's evidenced and original, and is it independent? So there is no selling product inside. And I have another example for you here, which would be an asset that I picked for the leadership pathway on communicating with the team. And simply because it's instructional and clear, people can access it, read through it, and understand exactly what they need to do to communicate well in their one-on-ones. Summarizing the quality criteria, applying all of them to your content pool will narrow down your selection greatly. And that will most definitely give you a list of really strong candidates to your learning pathway. So applying all of those criteria, we can move on to the step number 4 into our process, where we can start thinking about the structure of your pathway. The structure is extremely important because we need to make sure that the end user understands why this learning pathway has been created for him or for her, but also how to navigate. So there must be an element of introduction, an element where they can learn more about it, and also a further development possibilities if applied to the topic. And here is an example of a structure for a pathway for visualizing data. And if you can analyze that and skim that very quickly, you will see that I have included an appetizer video that will interest your audience in the topic. There is also a simple explainer article that introduces them to the whole subject, a few methodology assets of different types that will dive deeper into the matter, and also most probably certify them in a way, because those are learning courses that they can access online. All of that is followed by an example of skill application in the real life, so that your end users actually know how others have applied that skill at work or outside of work, and they can find their own way of using that skill. And to close that pathway with, I have identified a detailed infographic for any further reading and sparking ideas for future development.
And it's worth mentioning that was two things. Further reading shouldn't be a dumping ground for everything that you couldn't fit into the learning pathway. I think Kata's the example in this slide is great because it's as further reading, it's like, well, no, here's a resource. Here's something you can use. So good further reading is probably going to be more like a glossary or a dictionary or a performance supporting resource. And in some contexts, I'd even switch that around to say, actually, this is the part of the pathway you create by saying this is the takeaway, this is how you apply this in practice. The other thing to note is this is a fantastic model. When Georgie and Mark at Filtered kind of came up with it and published it in HBR, it was immediately taken up by our team and our clients love it. But curation is a very new space. There's so many ways to skin this cat. And as I mentioned before, the context can change everything. So I would really recommend you frantically screenshot this screen and you know, take it and use it as a model, but be flexible, be open to changing it based on your context. If you're only trying to raise awareness about something, then if you're trying to collect the best resources on a topic, that's not the same as a pathway like this, which is designed to provide all the scaffolding you might need to actually apply a new skill and is a fairly big undertaking.
Exactly, like Toby said, your pathway can be shorter, longer. It's all about the audience and the topic that you want to cover with it. Analyze it and make it yourself. Make it personalized, exactly how you need it. And also, like Toby said, constructing pathways tend to be an iterative and non-linear process. So, sorry, I opened one of the assets and then there is a Zoom bar that's just disturbing. Here we go. So that was step number 4, when we have to think about the structure of the playlist that we want to apply to our work. But there is always an element of revision that you also need to include. Review the content in relationship to each other. Analyze your topic again. Look at the diversity and novelty of the content. All of those small elements will help you build your perfect, rich, easy to follow learning pathway. The choice, so for example, why revision is really important is that choosing an amazing article that you think will be perfect for that playlist might actually appear to be not that great with the rest of the content that you have selected for your pathway. And you might need to decide that you want to exchange it for a video or a podcast, just to ensure there is the diversity that your audience can pick from and the coverage for the topic itself. Once you are happy with the pathway that you've actually created and structured and put together and then thought through, it's time to publish it. And that's probably the most exciting element of it, because that's just so rewarding. And you can actually publish it in so many ways. You can use your learning experience platform to publish it. You can send it over the email. You can apply that onto your intranet. You can share it on Slack. You can share it on Teams. And that's as easy to follow as people are on the go at work. They can access it from their phones, they can access it on their computers, and they can actually go back to it anytime, as long as it's published somewhere that's easily accessible. And the last thing I wanted to point out is, please remember about the title and the description of your learning pathway. Always include it, basically because that's the first thing they will see. If the title is intriguing, if it's sticky, they will always think about it. Oh, there is this Microsoft new learning pathway that I could definitely learn more about or from.
We've run tests specifically to prove that titles are important to kind of skeptical clients. So we proved the significance of renaming an asset that was called, intermediate project management to 10 tips to nail your next project. It really does make a difference. It's the way you encapsulate the purpose of your playlist. And the other thing I wanted to add here is, you'll notice that we have email, we have Teams, we have Slack in here. One of the things that we found with building learning pathways is not only does it really help with LMS and learning platform and LXP deployment. It's kind of really important to have thought out pathways through that content, but it also kind of unleashes your learning. Now you have an asset really that's just a collection of metadata of text and links. You can put it anywhere, and the email inbox is just as good as an LMS, and actually has really powerful tracking a lot of the time too. So it's really exciting the way that curating pathways kind of unblocks you and allows you to do much more of your content.
So that's the whole process. 6 maybe not easy steps, but once you start following them with every pathway that you want to curate, it becomes easier and easier. It's all about understanding what you need to curate your playlist on and what audience needs are, then gathering the content, funneling it down, structuring in a nice playlist that's easy to follow, that's a learning journey for everyone from your employees or audiences that you might have, reviewing it, making sure that every piece goes extremely well with one another, and then publishing it away to let everyone enjoy, learn more, and be better themselves at what they are doing, and helping you achieve your business case needs. And that's the end of the presentation. What I would like to do next is to show you the content intelligence product that I work with, and that helps me accelerate the curation process, accelerate the analysis of the content data that I have to work with, and how I help my clients achieve the learning goals of their audiences. So if I may just confirm that if I make that big, you can still see my screen fine?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Cool. So this is our content intelligence. So we've developed that at Filtered. It uses the artificial intelligence systems and a software to process the content. The content data that we get reliable insights about the effectiveness of this content in particular business cases that your organizations might have. And many of those cases are actually the learning pathways that we can quickly and simply deliver in any organization. When I work with my clients, I always take under account the content that they have. So I analyze the gathering of the content that they have. I would then add that into the system, and then moving on, I would think about the skills. It's a little bit of the broader topic than the actual playlist. So the skills that I would like the audience of my organization that I work with to develop, analyzing the skills and understanding how can they be applied at work will also help me to think about the topics for my learning pathways. And one of the examples that I wanted to show you today is creating a learning pathway for powerful partnerships. So when you think about powerful partnerships, you can think about the skills that might help you build out that learning pathway. And for example, one of those skills, if I open the dropdown, could be building relationships. So as you can see, I have all the content uploaded in here that I have received from my client, or we've gathered that together. And then knowing that there are some limitations that the audience would have, I can then filter through, for example, for the length, because I know that my team probably doesn't have much time to learn every day. Then I can try to pick up some content pieces that are not very long. I can also limit myself to, let's say, books and videos, or I can exclude courses. And then as I look at that list, I can see that I have some really good content that will help me build the relationship with my partner. There are a few other elements that I can filter for in here. For example, when this content piece has been published, so how recent it is. I can also filter what language it has been written in, but I can already see that the asset number 1 on that list, which is the most relevant one, will fit into my partnership playlist really great. So what I can do is simply click on it, click on the add to my playlist button, and I can create a new playlist called Powerful. Oh, sorry, Powerful Partnerships. And as I click on it, I can see that my Powerful Partnerships playlist has been added to my list. What I can also do is search for content. So if I actually try to find a word partner here, I will also see that there is some content in that skill already around partnerships. So why not add that to my playlist again? I can then navigate to my playlist, and I can see that my both assets are already here. Fantastic. I could potentially go and search for content among other skills that I have configured in here, but alternatively, I can use the suggested section just at the bottom of this page, and I can see that I have some really, really relevant content that would fit onto my playlist. And I can, as simply as that, click on the plus button and add a few of them. So I have said that I would like to include some short pieces of content. So maybe I can try to exclude the books and the courses. I already have 3 articles in here, so I can then see some other formats. And then I will see that I have some videos and audiobook, which would both fit quite well onto my playlist. I can potentially try to search for something else that might be a little bit more of a narrow term. So let's just use a business partner term. I can take my filters off just to give the algorithm a little bit of a field to show off. And then I can see that I have some really good content pieces that I can include onto my playlist again. So why not something about the pitfalls? So that would be a good methodology asset, and multiple partnerships, which would be a good one as well. As I collapse my suggested section, I can see that I have a good variety of assets in here of different lengths, different formats, and I can start to think about my structure. I can see that this one would be a really good fit for my teaser asset. And then as I apply down, I can see that this would be a really good methodology asset. I can think about this one as a simple explainer. What else have I got in here? I will move the simple explainer up down here. And then I've got a really good asset for methodology. Oh, sorry. And then I can just decide upon all the rest as I go. I will move up my methodology up here. And maybe this one would be a good further reading material. Once I'm happy with my playlist, what I can do with it is export it in a CSV file or Excel file, share that away with my communication team or my L&D professionals who can upload that to my learning management system, learning experience platform, send that over the email to people, but that might take a little bit of time. And I really want to share that very quickly. So what I can do instead is copy that very quickly onto my clipboard and navigate to my Teams and immediately start a new conversation and send that to everyone. Tagging all of them, like Toby, you should definitely read that. And just wait for all the answers and questions and comments that might come in from the end users that will see that. So like you might see, creating a learning pathway, analyzing the content, and then actually playing around with the content data that you have can be extremely joyful. And that's definitely why I still work for Filtered, and I enjoy it more and more every day. But that's not the only way for creating pathways. You can try and do it in your own systems, in your own ways, but I hope you enjoy it in any possible way. And that's all from me today. I would like to open the chat and all of you to ask any questions, any comments. Toby, Michael, if you would like to add anything to what I have said, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'd say, Kata, I'd like to draw your attention to a question from Eva or Eva. She asked about how much, in terms of a 6-step process, how much time do you spend on those different steps? Because in some ways they're sort of overlapping, aren't they? You know, research is continuous; it doesn't stop.
Yeah. So if I actually go back to one of the process slides, so we can have a look at them. If you think of, like, if I can analyze the projects that I have with my clients, that differs depending on how much content or how many playlists we should be producing for our clients, or we produce internally. The research itself usually takes around a good call with a client, so an hour, analyzing what there is in the business that will need fixing ASAP, or speaking to the end users and understanding how we can help them. It's all about finding this designated time, and you can do this very quickly. Gathering the content depends as well. If you have some internal or external libraries that you can gather, that takes a few clicks away. If you want to curate content out in the automated way, that might take up to a few hours, depending on how much content you actually want to find. And then curating content manually, again, that's probably the answer I can't give you in a simple way. Sometimes I can curate for days because I'm just really into curation. But if I really need to curate content on a specific topic, probably a few hours as well.
And I think, like most things, if you do the previous steps of researching, gathering and culling, the actual curation process is a lot faster compared to starting with a blank sheet of paper. We try and do, it's better to unbundle these things. There's another question about from VS about throwing light on the aspect of naming the playlist. So what tools and methods are used for naming? I mean, I'll throw my 2 cents in this. SEO is a really good model. So you could actually use a tool like SEMrush and kind of see what people are searching for. And we always ask our clients to try and export their LXP or LMS search data so we can see what people are searching for. Kata, what else? I mean, it's an art, isn't it? It's definitely not quite a science naming things.
I actually have a good idea for that. I always speak to the end users, and I try to listen to their internal jargon, internal jokes. How do they actually come to the point of a problem that they have? And then you might think about, for example, a very funny playlist name, exciting name that I have come across was Luxurious Delivery for a whiskey brand company, where they were focusing on how to deliver success to people and how to deliver projects, but in a luxurious way. They were always trying to compare themselves to the top luxurious brands, and a word luxury was a top one that they used to use.
Yeah. Kata, can you mind jumping back to the last slide just so we can try to wrap up a bit? If you want to find out more about filtered and content intelligence, we love to share what we do, and we really want to teach the world to curate learning better because we think it will make the world a better place. But if you want to find out more about the technology, we've developed content intelligence to support curation. It also does things like enhance your discovery of content inside your LXP or LMS. And it also allows you to analyze whole libraries and make better purchasing decisions. Any of that, either hit this QR code to go to our website and set up a demo, or actually just email me. So my email is toby@filtered.com, and I would be delighted to talk to you more about this. So thanks, Kata, for such an amazing job presenting. I think that was the best demo I've seen of our product. And also thanks to Michael for having us on this wonderful webinar that you've organised.
Absolute pleasure, Toby. And Kata, thank you. I completely concur with Toby. Very, very interesting and great to see so many comments and pieces of feedback coming in the chat. So thank you very much indeed. What I will do is I will just stop the recording now.